Welcome back to the She Thrives Influential Women podcast. I am your host, Lori Murphy, and I am an empowerment coach for women, public speaker, award-winning co-author, as well as columnist for the Rochester Women Online magazine. And it is so good to have you joining me here today. I have an amazing guest today, Sarah Van Eck. She is incredible. I cannot wait for you all to meet her. But before I introduce her, let me just tell you a little bit about this podcast and myself. I am a recovering alcoholic of over 13 years. And my journey in sobriety has led me down a beautiful path of healing and self-discovery, transformation, and really stepping into my truest self. My mission is to be able to guide women through their own journeys, to help them be able to navigate transformation, finding their self-worth, and to be able to step into their truest selves so that they can thrive in their lives. The purpose behind this podcast is to bring women together and to form a community, to have women come and share their stories, to give them a platform to be able to have their voices heard, and for all of you that are listening, to have a place to come and know that you're not alone and that if we can do it, so can you. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. Never miss another episode. Share this podcast with all of the ladies in your life and be a part of this amazing community. But without further ado, let me tell you a little bit about Sarah. Sarah is, she is just amazing. So if your dating life feels like a never-ending performance review filled with disappointment and frustration, you are not alone. After chasing career goals in business optimization, Sarah Van Eck had to trade spreadsheets and for psychology to understand how to solve her dating problems. Now trained in neurolinguistic programming, which I love, she blends mindset concept with her own embarrassing misadventures to help you understand yourself and lift your self-worth. Stop Hating Dating, Start Being You is her debut book, which we're going to talk about. A tool to help you overhaul your approach to dating to attract the people you deserve. Sarah, how are you today?
Hello. Oh, that was such a wonderful intro. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And I'm so absolutely. I'm excited to be able to have this conversation with you today because I know I'm a married woman now, but I can tell you if I were to have tell you the stories that I experienced when I was single with dating, oh good Lord. And I know many women out there are still trying to navigate dating and those mishaps and, letdowns. So it's awesome to be able to have you here sharing about all of those things.
Yeah, I think we can all agree even if we're in relationships now, we all have girlfriends in our lives who are still struggling with this and still trying to find their way. And I just love sharing these messages because it really brings people together because it's something most women have encountered. Uh, and I mean, I also just love sharing stories. Some of them are
Oh,
a bit unhinged.
I have to just get your book so that I can, hear all the stories. But we're going to talk about a lot of that today because one of the things I love is how you're using neuro-linguistic programming and mindset as a way to, navigate through dating and being yourself.
Mm.
Because I feel like we have this whole stigma and expectation set around us that when we go on our dates, we have to be a certain way to attract that partner. And half the time, you're not even being who you really are, right?
100%, 100%. And that's why this book takes a different approach to the regular dating advice because a lot of the dating advice that we receive is about you should do this, you should do that. And a lot of us take that on to think that means we have to change who we are.
Mm-hmm.
When
Yeah.
really it's not about that at all. And if you believe that you're not good enough to find someone, then you're going to act differently than who you really are. And that's why the neuro-linguistic programming is so important because it's about reframing your beliefs. And then if you can shift your beliefs about yourself, you're going to show up in a totally different way,
Mm-hmm.
not because you've changed yourself, but because
Yeah.
you've allowed yourself to be yourself.
Yeah. I remember when I was dating and people would, give me all of those rules and I hated rules. I still do actually hate. I mean, I love structure and I'm a lot better with it, but I just remember being like, "Oh, forget the rules." But guess what?
Yeah,
It
exactly. It
didn't
doesn't
really
feel
work.
genuine. Yeah, if you've got to follow these rules, you feel like it's not genuine. But you said it didn't work for you? Like,
Um, I think I just didn't like the idea of because I felt like I wasn't being authentically me. And that was
mm,
part of why was like, well, that's not really who I am. Like, you know what I mean? Like showing up
jumping
and
through these
trying
hoops.
to be a certain way or, the whole 3-day rule thing always frustrated me because it's just kind of like I'm like, listen, if you like somebody, don't make them wait 3 days to hear from you. You know what I mean? If you like them, just send them a text message, say it was a nice time. Then that's it,
100%.
you know?
And if they're turned off by that or put off by that, then they're not your person. Because if someone I really liked messaged me and said, I had a great time today, I want to see you again, I would be thrilled. You're only
Yes,
turned off by people sending you a message really quickly if you don't actually like them. So
right.
let those people fall away. That's good.
Absolutely. I hear you. But we got so much into this conversation already. I never asked you where you're from. And, where in the world are you from, Sarah? And tell us a little bit about yourself and how you stumbled into this work.
Mm. So I am on the sunny Gold Coast of Australia in Queensland, in Australia on the beaches. I grew up in Brisbane, so up here in Queensland, but I actually went and spent 10, 11 years in Sydney, which a lot of people would know Sydney is
Mhm.
one of the biggest cities in Australia. It's down in New South Wales, and that's where I really focused on my career. So when I finished my studies, I went down to Sydney and got into the corporate world and, chased career goals and it was exciting and it was big and it was all of these new people and different ways of living and it took me a while to come back to myself and understand where I wanted to be for my own lifestyle. So I ended up moving back here during COVID, and I actually moved back here for a relationship because I was in a 2-year relationship that was long distance. And during COVID, obviously, you have to make a decision. Are you going to keep seeing each other or are you going to split up because you're not able to see each other for so long
Mm,
with all of the travel restrictions that we had? So I moved up here to the Gold Coast, which is near where I grew up. And that's when I really started to shift how I was living my life. I was very much in the hustle culture. I was very much in the people pleasing. And even when I
mhm.
first moved here, I was still in that way. It took me a little while to be okay with enjoying my life, be okay with relaxing, be okay with coming back to who I really was because I spent a long time trying to be what I thought I should be. I
Mhm.
mean, I hit some big career goals. I got the six-figure job, I got the promotions. I was always busy, I was always traveling, I was always exercising, and I don't think I took much time to stop and think about what I actually wanted to do. It was always what I thought I should do. But now
Oh,
that I'm on the Gold Coast again, like I really try and get my lifestyle to be inclusive of that achievement, but also of being in touch with myself. The journey that I'm still on right now is getting in touch with who I am, even physically.
mhm.
Um, and that's what I'm hopefully going to talk about in my next book. But being in nature, finding ways to move my body that's more in line with what I need rather than what I feel like I should be doing.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's amazing. And I relate a lot to that. It's like I actually, recently kind of took a little bit of I call it a reset, where I just kind of took that time to just really reconnect with myself, with nature, and just being one with myself.
Mm.
Sometimes we just get so caught up in the hustle and the bustle of life and business and things. And, um, I find that it's easy to kind of lose yourself in those places,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah, so easy because you're getting all of these messages from all other directions of what you should be doing, how you should be living.
Hmm.
And the piece of work that I had to work on, which is a big part of the messages in this dating book, is learning to trust myself and trust that what I know I need is what I need to do rather
Mhm.
than all the things I'm being told I should do, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I do believe that it's all about just, like you said, like being you, right? Like
100%.
that was something that, like, when I was doing it, like I said, I mean, I'm married now, but when I was single and I was dating, I mean, I really had a hard time with that because I really wanted to just be myself. And
Mm,
sometimes, um, I don't think, I would come across people who weren't comfortable with that
mm.
because I don't know why, but it wasn't my problem because I just figured they weren't the right person for me. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, if
so,
you can have that realization, that's so important because quite often we get stuck in this trap of thinking people need to like us. And if
mhm,
we think people need to like us, we might go after that goal at any cost, including being yourself. And I I know a lot of the times people think that they're being themselves. I know for myself, I thought I was being myself. I just thought I wanted all of those things, but I
mm,
didn't actually stop and check in with myself. So,
right. And it's funny because the more I actually realized at one point for myself that there was a lot that I still needed to work through to really
mm,
get to know who I am. Because like you just said, like you hit the nail on the head. It's like I wanted to be myself. And I think now that I kind of think about it, I'm like, that's probably really what it was that I thought I was being myself.
yeah.
And you're still navigating who you are. And even recently, and I've been doing a lot of, some like deep healing work and like peeling back layers I haven't peeled back before. And even my ideas of and what I thought love was and, and all of that were so different than what they
Mm.
are now.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Yeah, and that's growth, right? Yeah.
I'm like, man,
It's
if I knew then what I knew now. I think I even wrote that in
lifelong.
my journal. I was like, if I knew then what I knew now, I could have saved myself a lot of heartache and frustration.
100%. I love the community of what you're doing because you're really trying to share with other women who might not be there yet, that it is okay to be yourself and that you can focus on you, because we get so many other messages in the opposite direction. So I think what the work that you're doing, it really is about community because I know the growth that I've had has been mostly from the women that I surround myself with changing up the people who I spend
Exactly.
my time with. And yeah, I think that's the way you shift it. That and therapy. I don't know if you're a big advocate of therapy, but I am.
Spent a lot of time in therapy.
Yeah.
I've been shrunk, Sarah.
Uh, one of the chapters of the book, I think it's chapter 3, I literally go into the science behind, like the psychology behind how we behave
Hmm.
in dating and how it's impacted by our self-worth. And I mean, researching for that chapter just helped me understand myself so much more. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say, research your way out of your problems and don't go to therapy, but all the reading and all of the YouTube videos and podcasts that we consume about this topic, like provided they're from reliable sources,
Hmm.
all helps us like understand ourselves more because if you don't understand why you're doing something, it can be really hard to change.
Oh, yeah,
Mm,
absolutely. It's kind of like getting down to that root cause,
mm,
um, and when you were, I'm curious to know, like share with us a little bit about one of your mishaps, if you don't mind.
mm.
Um, one of the lessons you had to learn along the way.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few. Probably a big one for me was I had to learn that it's not always a good thing if someone does like you. So if you are jumping
Mm,
through hoops to be liked by someone, but they're not your kind of person, you're just kind of trapping them into a relationship with someone that doesn't exist. And you're also trapping yourself into a life with someone who doesn't like who you actually are.
Mm,
If you're trying to be liked by people that aren't aligned with who you really are, I mean, you don't want to be getting fan mail from Hitler. You don't want to be getting fan mail from the KKK, right? Like, if you don't associate with someone's values, you don't actually want them to like you because that shows that you're really off track with your own values.
hmm
That was a big lesson I had to learn because I got into a relationship probably 3 years ago now, where, so this is a recent learning, where I kind of morphed myself into his life because I thought, oh, I could do that. I mean, it's not something I normally would. I don't normally go out drinking, but I could go out drinking 3 nights a week. Sure,
hmm
it's fun. And it wasn't aligned with the kind of lifestyle that I wanted to lead. But I thought I should do it because I was more attached to that person liking me and me fitting into their life than me being in my own life.
hmm
So that was a tricky lesson to learn because it can feel really scary to not be liked.
hmm
And that sounds silly to some people. If there's some people listening on this call that don't have that feeling, that problem, then you probably have different upbringings and different trauma than some of us who really do feel unsafe when people don't like us. It
hmm
plays into, I don't know if you know much about attachment theory with relationships, but uh
Yes, I've been kind of,
yeah.
that's part of the work that I've been doing is the old attachments because I realized there are still things that I'm subconsciously still attached to that I didn't even know I was still attached to. And it is fascinating,
Mm.
fascinating. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So attachment theory talks about multiple attachment styles, anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, and secure attachment. And for my girlies out there that are feeling like me, you're probably anxious attachment, which is based on feeling as though you're unsafe if you aren't close with someone, if you don't have a strong attachment with that person. So you're often grabbing onto love, you're trying to get more of it, you're trying to get reassurance, you're trying to bring people closer to you. You're always unsure if they're actually liking you, if they're actually close to you. And that comes from a place of needing security. So when we're growing up, it's really important that our caregivers care about us, that they're around, that they
Hmm
like us, because we need them to survive. So if you were facing any kind of challenges in your upbringing where you didn't feel like you were being, like, not that you weren't being looked after, but even just that your needs weren't being met, that can unconsciously bring about these feelings of anxious attachment. So in the future, you now associate distance or a lack of closeness with unsafety. And then it drives all of the animalistic parts of your brain and your body to respond. It's urgent, it's important, it's survival. So you're
hmm
suddenly bringing out these parts of yourself that feel it's important and urgent that you get that text message back, that you confirm that they like who you are. And that's a big part of the attachment theory. There's also anxious attachment and secure attachment. Do you know where you fall on the scale or?
So there was a point, and this is what's interesting, is that much younger. I was more of that anxious attachment where always questioning, do they like me? Do they really like me? Are they going to text me? Are they going to call? Well, when I was younger, their text wasn't even around, but I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I had this boyfriend when I was probably for between like 16 and 18. We were kind of like on again, off again, you know. And then like I found out a couple times that he had like another girlfriend at his school and all this other stuff. And I would sometimes get such anxiety, like, does he really like me? Does he really? I don't know what's going on here. It's like, I really like him. Is he gonna call me? Is he gonna come over today? And
Right? It's
you
like
know what I
so,
mean? And
yeah.
but I was a teenager, and some of that carried on throughout my 20s, you know. Um, I was I was actually in a relationship for 8 years and throughout my 20s. And, you know, I was constantly like, okay, for this person to love me, I have to be like, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to act like this, I have to be like this. it got to the
Hmm.
point now, they got to the point where I had lost myself completely. And I'm battling depression and anxiety. And now I'm drinking excessively and to the point where now I'm like full-blown alcoholic and now I'm just destroying everything, right? Then I get sober and that anxious attachment's still kind of there. But then all of a sudden I did a flip after doing a lot of work and transformation. All of a sudden I find myself avoidant.
Ah,
I
you've got best
flipped.
of both worlds.
I was like, I flipped and I went over to avoidant and it was, I don't know which one I was, if I had to choose between which one, I don't know which one I like, but
There is actually a fourth type of attachment that is a blend of anxious and avoidance. So you might be that special sauce.
yeah. I remember being in therapy and my therapist was like, do some research because I was in a relationship after 3 years of being single with somebody who was definitely uh, a lot of stuff going on there, but one of the
Mm.
things was definitely like an anxious attachment. And they were like, do some research on anxious and avoidant attachment. And she's like, I think you're going to be surprised on what you find out about yourself. She goes, because I
Mm.
think you're the avoidant. And I'm like, huh. Because I'm
And then you can take a
like
bit of ownership
I'm
of
like,
your
I
part of the
need my
play.
space. Like I need to be alone. Like,
And all you think is, why can't they do things the way I want them to be done, right? Because you
yeah,
go, they're doing it differently than me. I'm obviously right. They need to do things my way. And
yeah,
until we do the research and understand it more, we don't actually clock the things that we're doing.
right.
Because this is when you go back to NLP, right? Neuro-linguistic programming, what you believe is a fact to
Hmm.
you. Till you know otherwise, it's a fact. And there's so many unconscious facts we've stored in our brain that we're not even aware of. And unless you do research and challenge them and even meeting other people and talking to other people about how they live, you don't get a chance to pick apart. Is the way that I'm doing things actually healthy for me?
Yeah.
Mm.
It's so fascinating. Like, and I love that you are able to break this down to help women be able, even men, right? Because this book can kind of go toward either one, where they could sit back and really be able to understand themselves and, why they're behaving certain ways and, helping them, reminding themselves that, hey, listen, like, am I really being myself here? You know?
Yeah, and the reason I wrote the book was because I wanted to overcome a common, I wouldn't say a common misconception. I wanted to address the subject of being yourself while dating in a different way than what I kept being fed. So, really common dating advice a lot of people receive is just be yourself, as if that's some magic pill that you can take and everything will just fall into place. And when people say it, it's because they're in a different place than the person they're telling. To them, hearing just be yourself, it goes, oh yeah, I know what that means. I know how to do that. I'm completely comfortable with doing that. I know how that looks different to what I'm doing right now. And it's a button that they can push and go ahead and do that. But for someone who doesn't have the self-awareness, or for someone who doesn't understand how all of these pieces fit together, hearing just be yourself sounds like someone's telling you, it's simple, it's easy, just do it already.
But
And
it's
if you
not if you don't know who you are yet.
exactly, or if you think me being myself is a bad thing,
That
if you
too.
know who you are, or you know you're a little bit quirky, and you might have some experience in the past where being yourself didn't go well, you're going to think that being yourself is a bad idea. And then people tell you, just be yourself. Yeah, but sometimes I like to eat like a full packet of Tim Tams, like a full packet of chocolate biscuits in my bed. Like, people don't need to see that. Or, yeah, but sometimes I like to dance around the house like an idiot. People don't need to see that. Like, I can't just be myself. Don't be
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah. It's like, I don't understand. I'm weird.
Yeah. You don't understand. I can't be myself. I'm different. I'm special. And this is why talking about this stuff's so important, so people realize it's not that unique. a lot of us feel like fucking weirdos. And
Yes,
it still works out. We just got to find our own kind of weirdos to be around. And
exactly.
people that make the effort to find their own kind of weirdos are living life on a different level than those of us who might be trying to fit in and trying to be normal.
Yeah,
Because then you're really living.
yeah. I know that there was there was a point where my I would be afraid to be myself because this was a while like this was like when I was it's still insecure, still not even sure who I was. Like I said, lost myself completely and thought being me was a bad thing.
Mm,
When I finally stepped into, that self-worth and knowing that I am valuable and having self-love, it definitely changed the game in that regard. But then there was this point where I didn't, this, I'd have to say, before I really stepped into that whole like self-love, self-worth place, I was in this place where I got out of a relationship and I remember somebody asking me like what I like to do for fun. And I could not, for the life of me, answer this question. And I realized that I really didn't know who I was. I
that's
had,
huge. It's a
yeah,
huge piece of work to do.
I got sober when I was 29. And when I was about 30, I got into a relationship with somebody who was also sober, and we were together 5 years. And when that relationship ended, I realized that that entire 5 years of me being sober, I really didn't know who I was because
Mm,
I got sober, totally clueless and still lost and started a life with somebody and realizing that the life that he had really wasn't the life I wanted either. I didn't really have the love or interest in the things that we would do together because a lot of that was stuff he was introducing me to. So I just would go along with it and I'd have
mm.
fun. Wasn't that I didn't enjoy it, it just wouldn't something that I was going to carry on with me moving forward. So I really had to take some time to like get to know who I am. You know what I mean? What do I actually like to do? What makes me happy? You know?
Yeah, and you hear it a lot when someone ends a relationship. Oh, you've changed. You're not who you used to be. You've changed. It's like, yeah, man, that's a good thing. It's growth. And
Hmm.
coming back to yourself, it takes time. The the good and bad thing about a relationship is that it's it contains you in some way, right?
Hmm.
It contains you in a secure way where you feel held, you feel safe, you feel, encompassed in something with someone else.
Hmm.
But it also contains you in a direction, in a lifestyle, in a way of being. And that's why it's really important to do this self-worth work and understand yourself before you get into a relationship, because you might jump into the first relationship you see, which we see happen sometimes, and then 10 years down the line, it's like, man, how did I even end up with someone that's not even remotely compatible with me? And it's because you dove into a relationship before you fully understood what kind of relationship you wanted.
Right. Now,
Mm.
and one of the things we seem to really be touching on too is the whole like being you piece and trying to figure out who that is and all of that. So if someone were to come to you and say, well, you say, be myself, but I don't really know how to do that. What would you say to them? Like, what is the first step for them to take to be able to navigate figuring out who they are?
Mm. I want to look at this in two ways. So, understanding yourself, like who you are, and then valuing yourself, who you are. So, knowing yourself and then having self-worth.
Mhm.
And I would say for knowing yourself, it's about getting back in touch with the things that you like doing. It sounds really simple and easy, but quite often we end up doing all of these things that we should do, and we're not actually doing the things that bring us towards the life that we want to have. The biggest exercise in the book that I take the reader through in quite a detailed way with a lot of probing questions and examples is unpacking your values. And I mean, values is a huge topic in the self-help industry as far as how to classify them and how to understand them.
Mhm.
But the way I looked at values in this book is modeled after an exercise I did in an eating disorder journal. So part of my journey as well is that I had to come to terms with the way I was treating my body and the disordered eating patterns that I had.
Mhm.
And in that was understanding the concepts or the characteristics about yourself that you think are important and facing into the fact that some of them are actually not aligned with who you really are at all. So if you got down a pen and paper and wrote down all the things you should be to be a good person, to be the type of person you want to be a good person, you might find that some of them are pretty hard to face up to. I had things on there like not be a slob, be skinny, be interesting, have interesting hobbies. I spent a lot of time learning to surf because I thought that made me cool. And when you face into the fact that you're holding yourself to these standards, and that they don't actually align with the life that you really want to have. I want to have a life of connection. I want to have a life of authenticity. I want to have a life of moving my body because it feels good. I want to have a life surrounded by people who can understand other people's stories and not be judgmental.
Mhm.
And I didn't prioritize any of that in how I was showing up or in who I was showing up around.
Mhm.
So a big part of it is understanding your values and how you're measuring yourself. And then the
Mhm.
second part would be valuing yourself, having self-worth. And how does self-worth impact your dating? It impacts who you keep spending your time with, and it impacts who you allow into your life. Let's just say you think you're a bit quirky, you think you're a bit uh, unconventionally pretty. You might not think you're the conventional female archetype that you need to look like. And someone comes into your life, and for the first few weeks, they're giving you attention and you're really enjoying it. And that makes you feel good because you're thinking, oh, I finally have something that I want and I want to enjoy it. And then they might start treating you a bit differently. They might start making comments about your looks, or they might start disrespecting your time and not showing up. And if you don't believe that you are worthy of good treatment, you might cling on to a relationship or a dating situation much longer than you would if you knew that you deserved good people and a good lifestyle. So it's not just about knowing yourself and knowing the things you like and what you prioritize. It's also knowing that you are valuable as that version of yourself so that you don't allow poor treatment to continue. As you know from overhauling your whole life, it's amazing how much we think external factors are holding us in the place that we are,
Mhm.
but it's unbelievably liberating when you realize how much power you have in changing your own life. And quite often we are the ones allowing poor treatment and holding away good treatment in relationships.
Wow. That's amazing stuff. I mean, and a lot of it is very, very true. And I think all of us can say, or at least many women out there. I mean, I know I can say that I've been in those situations, especially when it comes to values. Like, there was a point in time when I actually have a friend and he's a coach, and I asked him to kind of coach me on some stuff. And he says to me one day, he goes, "What are your values?" And I'm like, "The fuck are values?" Like, no one, and I'm in my 30s, so that wasn't that long ago, and I'm over here like no idea. Like I'm like, wow, this is bad because I
Consciously
kind of
thinking
feel
about,
stupid. Like, I'm like, no one ever taught me about values.
yeah.
It wasn't something that as a growing up with, it wasn't something I knew about or understood. It was never even presented to me. And so now here I am in my mid 30s and I'm struggling. And my friend's like, "What are your values?" And I'm like, What? Good question. What are those?
Mm.
You
And
know?
it's quite often treated as a first step because it does make it confronting for you to take a look at your own life. But it's only the first step, right? Because then you start asking yourself more and more questions when you peel back all of those layers of like, well, why do I think like that? And well, I want this lifestyle, but I don't want the work that comes with it or the lifestyle that is required to have it. And then you end up asking yourself like layers and layers and layers and layers of questions to get down to the root cause. You said before,
Yes.
trying to get to the root cause.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing about values too is like, I have to say is that it does help with your confidence. If you're
Mhm.
feeling insecure, when you understand what your values are, you know what to stand firm in. So if you know that your number one value is your, let's say, your spirituality or your faith, you know that when someone comes in and tries to diminish that or take that down, you can stand firm in that, right? Or your other value is your health and your well-being. So when someone comes along and tries, to interfere with that or, you know, maybe take you from something that you enjoy doing, like going to the gym or whatever, you know that you're standing firm in that and you can be confident in that, and then you know that if you're in a situation or a relationship where somebody's not treating you right or aligning with those values, you feel more confident walking away. So you're not staying longer than you should.
Yeah, having your values and your self-worth enables you to have confidence in those scenarios. And I wanted to clarify the difference between having confidence and having self-worth.
Hmm.
Uh, so I look at it as confidence is outward, it's external, it's how you
Yes.
show up.
Yes.
And confidence, you can have confidence not just in yourself, but in a scenario or in a
Mm.
situation. So I'll give you an example. Um, and this is me being a bit candid. In my dating history, I dated a lot of boys. I had a lot of sexual experiences, right?
Mhm.
And I could confidently be around boys and know that in some way I was going to end up hooking up with them and spending more time with them.
Mhm.
I had a confidence in that. But my confidence was driven by me knowing how the situation would play out because I would often end up degrading myself. So I would say, I know I'm confident that they'll want to come home and sleep with me. That confidence was around me putting myself lower to then create a situation to unfold a
Right.
certain way. And that is the opposite of self-worth. Having
Exactly.
self-worth is maintaining yourself and then seeing what comes around you rather than forcing situations to happen
Yes.
and causing people to respond to you in a certain way because you're showing up in a way that is almost manipulating them, right?
Hmm.
So I want to clarify that confidence can sometimes be a bit of a bravado, whereas self-worth is internal. Self-worth is the beliefs that I hold about myself, the
Hmm.
knowing that I have about myself.
Yes.
And that sometimes doesn't show up as outward boldness or being really social. It's sometimes stillness. And I'd like to hear what you have to say about this as well, because when you went through your recovery journey, there would have been some times where you were quite insular, right? And
Hmm.
had to do that healing. And if you're coming back to yourself, it can almost look like you're not confident because you're
Yep.
inward and you're still and you are focusing on you, which is another common trope that people say with dating advice.
Oh wow. It's so amazing and I'm loving this conversation and honestly I wish we could carry it on all night long or well for you it's daytime. I'm still having a hard time grasping the fact that I feel like I'm talking to you in the future. Because right now we're recording this, and here for me it's Monday evening at 8:07 p.m. and it is but 10:07 a.m. in Tuesday over where you are. It's so
Yeah,
cool.
exactly.
Like it's so cool. but it's, I love too, I wanted to touch on before we wrap it up here is you had said that, being in Australia, you said you were from Brisbane.
Yeah.
Okay. So funny enough, this kind of ties into the whole conversation too, is back in 2011, I almost moved to right about time it was 2012 actually. I didn't almost move. I was going to go to Australia to Brisbane for a boy and kind of visit the
You make it work, right?
yeah, he was Irish. He was here in this area doing a job and we connected and we got along so well and we actually stayed connected when he went back and originally he thought he was going to end up coming back to the States, but he ended up in Australia. So I was, at the very beginning of my sobriety journey, and he was so supportive. Like we would email and talk all the time, and he was like probably one of my biggest fans at that moment. And I booked the flight, and I was gonna go, but it really just it didn't feel right because I wasn't ready for that kind of thing yet. And I ended
Mm.
up staying here and never made it over to Brisbane, but I hear it's beautiful.
Well, it is, but I'm really proud of you because that would have taken a lot of guts to go back on your word for that scenario, but you had to choose you.
Yeah, it was a matter of, and that was the thing. It's like, he was like, he's like, I was planning all of these things that were going to be steering away from alcohol. And, I was, active in the recovery program and he was finding meetings for me. And I was like, it's not when I'm there that I worry about, it's when I leave and how I'm not emotionally strong enough to
Mm,
handle that. And
mm.
no one will be there to stop me.
When you get back, yeah.
Or when I'm sitting in an airport and that drink is looking pretty good. And,
Mm,
he understood that. And, life ended up transpiring the way it should. He had met a lovely woman and they married, have two, yeah, I think they have kids. I'm pretty sure. I think it's something came across on my Facebook and yeah, I'm like, that's so good, you know? I'm just, I'm, it's just, and I'm married and life is good here. So it's like things happen for a reason, but it's just like, it's that thing. It's where I'm glad that I was able to stand firm in what was right for me in that moment. Because that would have been probably a big downfall spiral for
mm.
me.
Could have been an unraveling, and you had to listen to what you were going through and trust that you knew what you needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that that's important for all of us to remember that if something inside you is telling you something, like if it's something good or if it's telling you this isn't right, pay attention to that because you are the only one that's going to advocate for yourself, especially when it comes to dating because it's not everybody has good intentions.
Mm. And quite often people don't intentionally move around to harm us. It's
Exactly.
everyone's looking out for themselves and they're not
Mhm.
aware of your needs. You're the only one who's really aware of your needs.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mm.
100%. But so where can everybody find your book?
Yeah, so very exciting that it just launched this last weekend, just gone while we're recording this. So you can find it on Amazon, Booktopia, Indigo, and if you jump over to Goodreads, you can read all of the reviews from the fellows who have already purchased and read the book. If you want to know a little bit more about it, I don't have it in any bookshops in America. I'm looking at getting it in some bookshops here on the Gold Coast. But online, I'm sure we can drop a link somewhere. But
Oh,
even if you're
yes.
not grabbing the book, jump over to Sarah Self-Worth and have a look because we're constantly on this conversation and sharing these ideas around dating and self-worth. And I just want to keep connecting people and get this message out there because it is so important that we back ourselves, not just for dating, but for our lives.
Absolutely. And I will be sure to share links in the description of this episode so that people can find the book and, they can find a way to connect with you if they want to talk with you or ask you questions and, get a little bit more, advice from somebody who's, an expert in this field that can help them.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Absolutely. Um, I am so glad that you took the time to come on and chat with us tonight, Sarah.
Thank you so much. It's been so good to chat with you. And I mean, you're a fellow author as well, right? So you understand how big of a task it is to put together a book. And I think you're working on another one too. So you get that it's such a task, and I'm glad it's out in the world and we get to share it.
Yes, I'm putting together an anthology, so bringing together a team of 20 women to create a book that's going to be international. And there's a lot of heart and soul that goes into it. And but it's so worth it to be able to get the messages out there that we want people to receive.
I love that.
Yes. So thank you so much, Sarah. And I will, like I said, I will put links in the description so that you can connect with her, get a hold of her book, guys. I'm over here wanting to read it just because it just sounds so amazing and pass that along to clients that come along the way because I think it's solid information no matter where you are at in your dating life. So and so until next time, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Let go of fear and let your spirit shine.